Right, so these are the maintenance questions on the CB500 FA. So if they ask you how you'll check that your horn lights indicators are working, we'll go through these one by one. So if you turn the ignition on, you'll check at the front, putting your hand in front, make sure you move between dipped and main and see the light rise and fall. The blue light will also come on here. You're looking for your side light bulb, which is here as well, to make sure that's working correctly. At the back, you should go round, make sure that the rear light's lit up, which hopefully we'll see lit up there, number plate light lit up, and the reflector is also clean. If they ask you to check your left and right signals, you'll check your left indicator, both left and right on the front and the rears. So check the front and the rears. Okay, so they're working correctly. If they ask you to test your horn, so you give it a press. The one just have to go other side of the bike. So for brake light, if you ask how you check your brake light is working before you move away for a journey. So you test the rear brake, press the rear brake and see it light up. With the front brake, you'll pull the front lever in and make sure that that lights up at the back. Okay, so that's the maintenance questions around your electrics. If they ask you to explain the use of kill switch, explain that the kill switch, when you use it, it's used in case of emergencies. What you would need to try and do when you're trying to kill the engine, it's basically because of main mechanical failure, or also if maybe you were to have a fall. So you'd explain that it's only emergencies, keeps the electrics live so you can be seen with the horn indicators and lights. But what it would do is it would just kill the engine in case of emergency in times of bad problems with accidents, or that maybe you have a situation where you have mechanical failure from your cables. If they ask for cables, make sure they're all in their proper stays. So if they ask you how you check your cables have sufficient wear and they're okay, you're looking for any fraying, make sure they're all in their proper stays and well oiled and lubricated, including like the clutch valve down here. And if they ask you all your cables, they should all be in the proper stays like this. So if they're all in the proper stays, then that's all good. If they ask you how you'll check your brakes have sufficient fluid levels and they're also well maintained, you'll say you look down the side of the caliper down here, make sure there's enough material on the pad and there should be no scoring or damage to the disc. Your brake fluid level is just here, so you check your levels are between the minimum and maximum marks. Same on the front, just in the sight glass just here, make sure it's between the upper and lower or minimum and maximum. If they would ask you as well, the next question would be how you would check that your chain is adjusted correctly for slackness. First of all, point out that with your chain, you would slacken off the main bolt, which is just here. Just slacken off the main bolt. Adjust your chain tension as even, and make sure that the front and the rear sprocket are aligned. After you've checked they're all aligned and there's no more than an inch of play, you would re-tighten the main bolt. When it actually comes to with the suspension, make sure that you got sufficient wear in the suspension that it's actually working okay. You'll look down at the spring, make sure there's no broken coils on the spring, which is just down by the bottom of the swing arm, and make sure there's no heavy misting. On your front as well, you'd make sure there's no heavy misting, and this one's just got light misting, so that's all good on the front suspension leg. When it actually comes to another question that would ask you in relation to headstock, what you should find is that when you pull your front brake upright, you would make sure that you can rock the bike and there's no play in the headstock, and that you can move the bar from left to right with no notchiness and binding of cables. Okay, with the oil, this one on the oil, it's actually would have your bike upright and there's a little sight glass here to make sure the levels between the upper and lower. You have to look really far down the swing arm for this purpose. I'll just explain that when you've got the reservoir, that when you look at the bottle, it should be between the minimum and maximum levels. If actually how often you do these, you say you'll do these every time you ride. Engine should be cold. Recommended fluids found in the handbook. And usually you do these checks, sometime every time you ride, which is a good thing. As far as it goes with tyres, you'll check that your tyres are actually above 1 millimetre of tread around the whole tyre with no cuts and bulges. Your recommended tyre pressures are found in your user manual. Don't use the ones on the tyre wall because that's the maximum inflation. and there should be no cuts or bulges or defects, and no canvas, of course. But you'll check both front and rear around the whole tyre, and of course check with a reliable tyre pressure gauge. And of course, that's how you do it every time you ride. Okay, so I think that is all the maintenance questions on the CB500 FA. So, right, what I'll do is finish off with the pillion questions. So, with pillion questions, they might ask you with a pillion question, what adjustments would you make while carrying or allowing for extra weight of a pillion? You would say that you might consider slackening the chain and allowing for the extra weight. You might strengthen your rear shock. You'll also adjust the dip beam. You might consider lowering that dip beam headlight. If they ask you what allowances you make for the extra weight, you would say you should take more gradual, slower stops, respect the way you stop with your stopping distances, and then you would also use a progressive throttle, one that obviously isn't going to upset the passenger at the back. When it actually comes to allowing for extra weight, so you'll allow for extra weight when leaning into a corner, and you'll also allow for extra weight at low speed. When it actually comes to the question they ask you with what advice would you give a pillion, you'd first of all show them where to put their feet, which is on the foot pegs just here. Show them where to hold on, which is on the grab rail or onto the rider in this case, because there's no strap. You'll tell them to only get on and off the bike when they're told to, and of course no arm signals. You'd make sure as well that they're in proper helmet, approved helmet, and they've got actually the chin strap done up. You'd also make sure they're in proper jacket, boots, trousers, gloves, and that they're well protected. Okay, so that's what advice you would give a pillion, including telling them no arm signals. In relation to those questions, that's all the questions that they might ask you. Remember, it's 2 maintenance questions and 1 pillion question. Okay.